Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today we have a topic episode about scholarships, and I'm bringing in my closest expert, our associate head coach at Baylor University, Mikkel Barrick Andreessen. Mikkel, welcome today.
Thanks, Coach. Don't know if I'm an expert on the scholarships, but, you know, wherever we go, golf camps, out recruiting, talking to parents, this is maybe the most asked question or questions. So we figured this would be a good idea to kind of get some facts out regarding scholarships, in college golf, Division I and other divisions. Don't know how much of an expert I am or you are, but we certainly have a lot of experience and know the ground rules.
Well, I do know one thing about it. Thank you for that, Mikkel. I do know one thing about it. Scholarship dollars are truly the only limited resource we have. So if a school wants to go out and raise $5 million to build a facility, if they want to travel a certain way, if they want to stay in nice hotels, I mean, it's not limited. It's whatever the school will allow you to spend, you can spend. But the fact remains, scholarship amounts are limited. We only have a certain amount. And they're not equal from school to school when you think about it. Mm-hmm. It might cost $70,000 to go to one school. It might cost $20,000. So let's talk about the scholarship amounts, the amount you're allowed to give out relative to the rules.
Yeah. The very first question we always get, Coach, is how much scholarships do you guys have and how much scholarship can you give to a recruitable athlete? Mm-hmm. So how do you answer that in Division I where we're at right now?
Well, how you answer it is we've only got 4.5 on the men's side. That's 4.5 scholarships, full scholarships at any given time. So like right now in the spring of 2023, we have spent our allotment of 4.5 scholarships on the 9 players we have on the team. Mm-hmm. The women have 6.0. So they have 6 scholarships, 6 full scholarships. Now, the good thing about being an equivalency sport, I guess, is because you get to split those up. Mm-hmm. So if I've got 10 players on the team and I've got 4.5 scholarships, I could give 45% to all 10 players. But it doesn't really work that way. Some kids get a little closer to a full, some might be a walk-on, some might get books. So tell me your advantages and disadvantages, Mikkel, on being an equivalency sport. We've got 4.5 to give away.
Like you said, you can split it up down the road, and maybe some programs do that where everybody's kind of on equal amounts. But you have, it's the most finite resource you have as a coach. So when parents ask how much scholarship do you guys give out, we have 9 players that are spread out over basically 4.5 classes. So it's basically 1 scholarship per year that we have to give out to a recruiting class. But that doesn't always turn over because you might have a big class, you might have a player or two come back for their 5th year. And so the boring answer is it just depends all the time. It just depends how much you have available. But every coach is going to use this resource to their greatest extent ever.
Well, they are. And I was talking to my old boss, Mike Holder at Oklahoma State. When I first went to work for him, we were talking about all different kinds of subjects and different things. And one of the things he says, how are you going to stretch 4.5 scholarships, Coach McGraw? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, you know what? When I first got in this, it was basically unlimited. You have 11 scholarships, and that's more than enough. Mm-hmm. If the school wanted to fund that would be more than enough to get your team where you needed to be. And he said even before that, when Dave Williams was coaching at the University of Houston, I mean, Dave might have 20 guys on the squad and maybe 16 of them are on a full scholarship and 5 are walk-ons. Nice. It would be really nice. And, I always talk to our women's coach, Jay Goebel, and I say, golly, I'd love to have that 1.5. Just give me 1.5 because it's hard to stretch these dollars. And so that's part of what you and I want to talk to our listeners about is it is a finite resource. It's something we can't extend or make greater, but we have to make the best use of what we do have.
Yeah. And so, like we stated, Division I, all men's program have 4.5. Women's programs have 6. In Division II, we've gotten the numbers that men's programs have 3.5 and women have 5.4. Division III, there are no athletic scholarships. You can only get academic. And then there are also scholarships available in NAIA and junior colleges. So there are scholarships out there, but on the men's side, they are a little bit tighter than the women's side.
They are a little bit, and that's okay. And part of that goes back to Title IX, which was a public law back in the early 1970s to try to give equality and equity to sports and give women opportunities. And it wasn't just sports; it was in all of education and all learning opportunities. So that's another thing, a point that needs to be brought up. So let's say
I got a good question.
Go ahead,
because I know where you're going.
Go.
So, what about this one, Coach? A parent comes with a player and says, "Hey, your school is my son or daughter's dream school, and I know you've told us you're out of scholarship money for this recruiting class, but can my daughter or son just be a walk-on?" And you say no a lot, and why is that?
Well, I hate saying no to that question because that's ultimately, it's like we won't require any scholarship. I just want my son to have the opportunity. And if I have a small roster, that's probably a likely outcome. A good player, great kid with good grades, and they're not requiring any athletic scholarship. But if I'm at my roster size limit, and that is dictated by Title IX, that's different at different schools because of the ratio of male to females on campus. But anyway, if I'm at my roster limit, it doesn't matter if the person's a scholarship person or a walk-on. I can't take another player.
Yeah,
that happens.
So this is something that people are probably not aware of very much. So like at Baylor, there are more undergraduate female students at school in general than male. And so our athletic department has to mirror that or close to mirror that. Yep. And so we don't have a hard number on our roster size, but the administration wants us to keep it between 1 or 2 players. We can't have an infinite amount of players on our roster because we have to match male to female as a department, mirroring what the school is overall.
Yeah, and we're in compliance with that. But another thing is I wouldn't want to have 15 players.
Right.
I mean, we've got 9 this year. I'm pretty happy with that number. Some years we'll have 10. But if it might also be another consideration when you're thinking about scholarship and schools and different things, size of the squad might really matter to a player.
Yeah, but just so you guys know out there, that is a legitimate reason that the coach gives you. It's not a recruiting talk or whatever, trying to find an explanation. The roster limits are real from campus sides on all schools across the country.
They really are. So as you're going through the recruiting process and you're evaluating schools and as coaches are evaluating you, that's going to be one of the actual key factors in the situation as to where you end up. It's squad size, scholarship dollars, and that. But that leads me to something else, state school versus private school. Mm-hmm. So they are a little bit different. Mikkel, you might
Yeah,
some of the
so
differences.
I mean, as a lot of people that listen to this know, I came here from Texas Tech. So I went from state to private. You've done the same from Oklahoma State to Baylor. And it is different, obviously, in the cost, but it's also different in the amount of both academic scholarship available and the processes. So a thing at state schools a lot is, hey, we have this in-state tuition and an out-of-state tuition. What would help us a lot at a state school, and what I hear other state schools have the similar processes, is an out-of-state player might qualify for an academic scholarship, either from their SAT or their GPA. What that does is it knocks it to an in-state tuition, but the terminology goes, you get to keep the same denominator. Basically, your academic scholarship is covering a lot of percentage of your total scholarship. And so there are ways that are unique to state schools and private schools on how you stretch these scholarships to the maximum amount. And academic scholarships is the common denominator. It helps regardless of whether you're at a private or state school.
Good point, Mikkel. So if I'm a 7th or 8th grader, right now the grades I make don't count against my academic record for high school because I'm still in the middle school or junior high or whatever you want to call it. But once I get to the 9th grade, everything I do in the classroom counts. Mm-hmm. And I just tell players, our prospects, I tell their parents, when we talk to him, it's very important that you make good grades, because if I'm looking at two kids that average 73, they basically have the same ranking, they're the same type of player, I'm almost always going to defer to the side of the kid who's a better student, who will actually apply for and probably get some academic scholarship, because every penny he gets on the academic side makes it easier for us to stretch our athletic scholarship. Mm-hmm. So I can't emphasize it enough to prospects and to parents. If you're a good student, you have changed probably your destiny about where you could end up, because you're much more likely to end up at a school.
Yeah, and so to take that example at a state school, if you show up there and you're able to provide the coach basically with an academic scholarship, now all of a sudden you have in-state tuition. So the coach's athletic scholarship that it gives you, he has to give you a much smaller percentage to cover the same expenses that you need covered to attend that school. Let's say your budget is $5,000 and you get a small academic scholarship that's automatically granted, but it also knocks your tuition to in-state. That helps the program out a lot. And so if you're at a private school like Baylor or somewhere else, they have different processes, but the result is the same. You show up with an academic scholarship, it might be 10, 15, 20%. That's 10, 15, 20% less that the coach will have to cover on the athletic side. And so that makes our 4.5 at both state and private schools go a lot further.
It does. And plus, another reason a coach looks at academic kids who apply for and get academic scholarship, it's less likely that when in college and you're missing all that school because we travel and play tournaments, it's less likely a really good student is going to have a problem in the classroom. A kid who's an academic casualty or really struggling, it's probably going to affect his golf, affect everything we do. So if I'm looking at this, it does say student before athlete. So academic scholarships are really, really important. Again, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yep.
The coach is happy, your parents are happy, the university's happy, the university's still getting their money for your tuition and your room and board and all that. So academic scholarships are huge, and every coach uses them to the best of their ability they can.
Let's talk about one thing that we haven't necessarily prepared for or spoken of so far, but when you agree to a scholarship coach, it's different from which school you agree to. Some schools you agree on a one-year basis, a one-year contract, and some schools you agree to actually your whole education, 4-year contract. So how does that work in the recruiting process when you're offered a scholarship?
Well, when you're offered a scholarship, first of all, you are not allowed to actually write down the scholarship offer until it's right at the beginning of the senior year.
I believe it's August 1 of your senior year.
Yeah. So don't expect a coach when you're at the beginning of your junior year when we can actually talk to you. We can't actually talk, communicate, text, phone, whatever, until June 15th after your sophomore year. And there's about a 2-month period there where you're having phone calls and we're evaluating you on the road and all of that. But there could be a verbal offer at that time, but it can only be verbal. We can't write it down. I can't even write it down until August 1 of your senior year. So it's like, I'm giving you a verbal. So let's say I tell the player he's going to get 50%. Well, I mean, he's got to wait until August 1st before I can write that down. And then he doesn't sign a letter of intent until November of our financial aid agreement until November of his senior year.
Yeah. But when you say 50%, what does that mean? Is that, because here we do 4-year.
Yeah. So 50% for me is, if I'm going to commit it to 4 years, I would say you're going to get 50 every year. That's what you're going to get. But we can also juggle that around if we need to. I might say I'll give you 60 the first year, maybe 40 the next year, 75 the next year, and 25 the next year, averaging 50% over 4 years. I can do that. But whatever I write down in that scholarship agreement, the financial aid agreement, when you sign your letter of intent, I can only increase that. I can't take away from it.
Right.
You'd have to break a law, break a school rule, you'd have to do something pretty bad to have it decreased. And so in the Big 12 conference, we have to write a 4-year scholarship. So it means whatever I've written for 4 years, I have to stand behind it.
Yeah. So it is an obligation until you actually get your degree or have exhausted your eligibility, which means you're not allowed to compete anymore in college. And so that's a Big 12 rule. And then other schools have 1 year contracts, and they're also hard to decrease, I will say, but I'm not so positive on the actual rules and the process of that because I've been at a Big 12 school for 6 years. So that is an important consideration that you and your parents should consider, is ask the coach, how long is this scholarship valid for? What are the obligations? All that kind of stuff.
Right, and remember, it is just a verbal agreement until you sign that national letter of intent and the financial aid agreement. So it is verbal to that point. And you hope that you're dealing with a coach, and the coach hope he's dealing with a family that would honor what they've said they would honor. And yeah, so that's important. Sure. But how important is scholarship? I mean, literally, how important are these dollars?
Yeah, this is a question we maybe don't get that often. How important is it? Parents and players maybe don't come out with this very much, but we very much know dollars are real. All coaches do. The cost of education, I believe, increases 8% yearly. So it's obviously very, very important. We recognize that. What is your take on that, Coach? How important scholarship is?
Well, we're going to play a clip here in a minute of somebody who has a certain opinion, and I happen to agree with him. But how important is it? It's important because if my yearly income for a family is only $60,000, it would be hard for me to go to a school where the tuition is $70,000 or whatever. I mean, you can't make that work unless you have the scholarship. So it does what I'm getting ready to say. Scholarship is very important to everyone, but that's why academic scholarship is so important. That's something I can control. I can be a great student and earn academic scholarship. Well, then that's already a nest egg there I've got waiting for me based upon my academics. How important is scholarship? It's important, and it's different for every family, as I was saying earlier. So to me, since it's different, I think you have to look at it like this. Now, this is unrealistic, but I'm going to say it anyway. Pretend that your dad is a multi-billionaire, or that it doesn't cost a dime to go to school. So it's either one. Either way you look at it, either money doesn't matter to you, or it doesn't cost any money to go to school. Then you could make the decision based upon the pure, where do I want to be? Who do I want to play for? Who do I want my teammates to be? What kind of facilities? How do I want to travel? What division do I want to be in? So I make all those decisions based upon. But the reality is, my dad isn't a billionaire, and it does cost money to go to school. So from that standpoint, we know dollars are real, and it is important to people. So we talked about this, and we thought back to an episode that's one of the more popular ones of this entire podcast, and hopefully we'll get him back on soon. But Mike Holder of Oklahoma State had a little snippet on this scholarship, and he's kind of telling the story about his decision-making in college and how happy he was with that decision and how little scholarship played a factor. So we'll play that here in just a second. And before you actually go to that, Mikhail, because you're the tech guy, before you go to that, Mike, the first time he told me this story in his office when I went to work for him, he was very emotional about this. He doesn't get as emotional in here, but you can kind of hear it in his voice. It's like this was a big deal for him. And what he's going to get ready to tell you, you prospects, you parents, you listeners, is this decision about how important scholarship is. Let's think about what else you're getting out of the college experience.
Yeah. So let's see if we can get this clip playing here. Here we go. Here's Mike Holder.
But I just know this. If you want to go to Stillwater, don't worry about the money. Your mother and I have saved our whole lives so you could have a chance to go to college. And we want you to go where you'd like to be. And that meant a lot to me back then, but it means even more to me today. And I see so many youngsters making decisions for all the wrong reasons and picking schools because of the amount of scholarship, which is the least valuable thing any athlete's going to get when they go to college. It's going to be more about the coach that you're with every day, the teammates that you're around every day, the values, the culture, the work ethic, the principles, all those things are what matter. And if you pick the right place.
All right, so that's his take. And so I know you and I are two coaches sitting here, and this is a third coach. So I realize that this argument is a little bit lopsided from where we're coming from. Neither of us are sitting with a couple 18-year-olds heading off to college right now. But I think what we're all trying to say is if you can afford the offer from the school, basically you have to decide as a family, what can we afford? And these are the schools that are within that scope. I think Coach Holder is saying the least valuable after that is a qualifier is the amount of scholarship. Don't try and make $5,000 on the decision of the school because of the scholarship. If you've gotten past the threshold, hey, we can afford these options, truly try and sit back and disqualify the scholarship amount from there on and pick the best fit for you as an athlete.
I agree with that completely. And Mikkel, you and I are not asking families to go into debt just to get a great coach. Or,
of course not.
We're not asking that. But the truth is, the 4 years you spend in college, if you are with a coach who is inspiring, if you have teammates that are committed, this could be the most transformative time of your life. It's the first time you're away from home. It's the first time that you're having to make decisions. It's the first time you're having to have conflict resolution with adults outside your parents. I mean, this is a lot of things going on in your life. What's that worth? Mm-hmm. I mean, I realize I don't want you going into debt, but is it worth paying a little bit more? Is it worth taking a little less? To me, it would be worth being the best student I could be in high school so that I could earn part of my way, with what Mike Holder said there. And he went on to talk about how it transformed him as a human being and how it changed his life. I think that's what college is about. And I think that's why I'm involved in it. So part of this talk about this scholarship deal today was to kind of give people an education, but to also remind them, be very, very, when you look at this, be intuitive to what's really important to you. What is important to me as a person? And your parents can help you with this. But right now, although I don't want you to go into debt, I don't mind you making a sacrifice or two to get to a place that's going to change you.
Yeah. Let's talk about scholarship once you're on the team.
Okay.
We've always had a rule on every team I've been a part of to try not discuss scholarship within players, within kind of the roster. But does that play a part in, and this is a question we get sometimes, does the amount of scholarship you're on have a part in how much playing time you're going to get?
If it does, then I would want to have a talk with that coach and say, listen, that's not, you're here to put the best team you can. If you made a mistake in evaluation, you gave a kid too much and you gave another kid not enough, or if a kid came and was a really good deal or whatever, that doesn't matter. The players that play well should play. Mm-hmm. So with me, I've played walk-ons in the national championship. I played 2 actual walk-ons in the national championship 1 year at Oklahoma State. We finished 4th in the national championship with 2 walk-ons. Buddy Alexander won the national championship, and his team captain that year was a true walk-on, was a football player in high school at Florida. So yeah, a coach if he's smart, he'll play the walk-on even though he's got a scholarship kid sitting at home. He just made a mistake in evaluation. It should not play a part in playing time. It should not, in my opinion. What do you think?
Absolutely. The best players will play. You have 4 years in college, and if you come into class with a couple players, one is on a lot of scholarship and you're not on as much, I mean, you have 4 years to really develop your game, and a lot happens in those years. And I don't think there's been a team I've been a part of that we haven't played a kid that's on less than 5% scholarship. It happens everywhere and all the time.
I think you're totally right about that. And the fact that we have a pretty hard and fast rule at Baylor, I don't want you sharing your scholarship amount with anybody. For one, it can cause hard feelings. Another, jealousy, bitterness. Coach, you're only playing him because he's on scholarship. None of that should matter. But it doesn't matter once you get there. You earned your scholarship coming into college on your junior record. We can't do anything about that anymore.
Right.
Now we're having to re-earn it. I told Ricky Fowler that when he was a freshman, because we had like a hard and fast rule. You qualified for the first term. It doesn't matter how. He was the number 1 ranked amateur in the world, was one of the best junior golfers that had, of his era, and I made him qualify to go to his first tournament. And I said, don't make me look like an idiot. qualify here. I need you on that plane. And he did.
Luckily.
Yeah, luckily. But it didn't have anything to do with playing time. That same year, 2 of his teammates were walk-ons that played in the national championship.
You started college in the late 70s, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and finished in the early 80s. What was your scholarship story and like your stops in Odessa and Oklahoma City, right? So what was your trip through scholarship and how was it back then and what decisions did you make in your college career?
Well, I actually only had one full scholarship offer. I was a good high school player, but not a great one, but I only had one. I'd promised my parents in the ninth grade, I'm going to pay for college. I'm going to earn a scholarship. And so I guess I'm a little stubborn, a little too proud, whatever. I didn't want to go back on that. It's like I told them I would, and they had 7 kids they were paying, for college. They had a big family. And so my game didn't develop as I thought it should, and so it turned out that I didn't have any Division I schools that were interested. There were, really, I guess a couple of Division II schools might have, but recruiting was a lot different in those days. I do want to talk about this conversation I had with Mike Holder. Mm-hmm. Because it relates to exactly what he was never interested in me as a player. He had the number 1 program in the country. I was a good player, not a great player. At the time, he had about 15 players in the team. So he was like adding me to the squad, who knows. But he also had not seen me play in a national tournament. And I finally got in the Junior Orange Bowl in Miami, Coral Gables, my senior year. And I flew down there and I played in the golf tournament. And with 9 holes to play, I was in 3rd place. Willie Wood and Mark Calcavecchia were ahead of me, and
somehow
I don't know how. Now, I played a bad last 9, shot 40. I think I finished 10th in the Junior Orange Bowl. But the point was, Mike Holder watched me play that week. Took up about a month to get the courage to call him up. And I remember I had caddied for him as a boy. He'd come up and played my dad's Pro-Am. So it's not like I didn't know him. I knew him very well. And I called him up. He said, hello. And I said, Coach Holder, it's Mike McGraw. He goes, hey, Mike, what can I do for you? And I said, well, Coach, it was great seeing you in Coral Gables last month. I really appreciate you watching me. And he wasn't watching me. He was watching Willie Wood, my playing partner. He wasn't watching me. But he said, well, what can I do for you today? I said, well, I'd really like to talk to you about being a walk-on at Oklahoma State next year. And there was silence on the other end of the line. And I thought, yeah, because I'd really love to play at Oklahoma State, Mike. And he said, well, Mike, appreciate your offer there to walk on, but Mike, I've got about 15 or 16 players right now that are better than you. I mean, my heart sunk, but he was telling me the truth. Mm-hmm. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're willing to walk on, you're not good enough to be here. And I'd hurt to hear. And I said, well, Coach, I'll tell you what, I'll be the hardest working player you have. Nobody will outwork me. I'll hit more practice balls than anybody. I'll do great in the classroom. I just told him all these wonderful things about me. And finally, he shot back at me. He says, well, Mike, that's fine. But on Monday through Thursday, when you're on that driving range with all these great All-American golfers, you'll get to practice with those guys. That'll be great. On Friday, I'm taking them to Arizona for a golf tournament. You're still going to be on that same range. Mike, you don't belong here. As hard as it was to hear that in 1978, January, it was the best advice he could have given me because it made me think about other schools. And so I didn't have any other offers except Odessa Junior College in Barry Rodenhaver, Odessa, Texas. My brother had played for Barry at Odessa, and Barry offered me a full scholarship. And he did it partly on my brother's recommendation. He had seen me play one time, I think. And so I went and played at Odessa. And when I was leaving Odessa to go to Central Oklahoma, I had no scholarship offer. I just had an opportunity. So that's going to be pretty rough. Now, I do realize that I think a credit hour cost $39 in 1979. Mm-hmm. So
that would have been nice.
It would have been real nice. That was at a state school. Mm-hmm. So 39 times 18 hours. Do the math. There's your tuition for a year. For a semester.
$500-ish.
$500 or $600. Yeah. To room and board for a semester was $500 or $600. Start doing the math. It's like you could afford it, but I didn't have any money, and I'd promised my parents that ridiculous, stupid promise I'd made 5 years earlier. I'm paying for college. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was pretty dumb, Mikhail?
No, I think you figured it out. I think that's where we're going.
Well, I did figure it out. So what I decided when I went to Central Oklahoma, I called Art Proctor, who was the head pro at Kickingbird Golf Course in Edmond, but he was also the kind of lay coach. You know, he was the guy that went to tournaments with the Central Oklahoma golf team, and the athletic director had I think he paid him a stipend every year to just help the golf team. And we played our qualifying rounds at Kickingbird. So I called up Art, and Art knew me because of my dad. My dad was a club professional, and Art was as well. And so I said, Art, I need a job, you know, while I'm there. Saying, hey, no problem, Mike, we got it. When do you get here? I said, August 17th. He said, you're hired that day, no problem. So I went to work here. I live right next to the golf course. The golf course is right next to campus. I play and practice at the golf course, and now I work at the golf course. It's set up. I can pay for my schooling this year. I'll just work every moment that we're not practicing or playing. And that worked in August.
In classic Coach McGraw style, by the way.
What do you mean by that?
No, just constantly working.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, my wife thinks the same thing. But so August, September, even into October, that was very good because the weather was good. Kickingbird was busy. They played 250 to 300 players a day run through that place. There's a driving range. There's a restaurant. There's a golf shop. There's carts that they, you know. So we had all these different aspects of the job, and I could do anything. I was a monster man. What do you need me to do? I'm doing it. So I was able to fund my, you know, I was saving money and doing that and paying for my tuition. And I remember along about October, it started getting a little cooler. And by November 1st, we had cold fronts move in, and the hours just weren't there. So what do you think happened there, Miguel? I don't have any job, right? So I went to Art one day, and I said, Art, I've got to pay for my schooling, and I'll do anything. I will. The most hated job at Kickingbird was cleaning the grill. Mm-hmm. Because you got greasy and gross. I mean, it was bad. It was a tough job. It was a 2.5 to 3 hour job to get everything done that day. And nobody wanted to do it. It was like you got punished to have to do the grill. I said, I'll do the grill 7 days a week. I'll empty trash cans. I'll go out and pick up trash on the golf course. I'll park car. You tell me what I need to do this winter. I just need to work all the time. And he looked at me and says, okay. And so literally when everybody else was kind of glad they didn't have to work, I was thinking, I'm paying for my schooling. I'm getting it done right here. And it was like, I thank Art, for one, for allowing me to do that. And he just told all the managers, like the manager of the restaurant, the head pro in the golf shop, or the head assistant, give Mike some jobs.
Tell this little guy what to do, basically.
Tell him what to do. He'll do it.
That's awesome.
But it was literally out of, I'd made a promise to my parents. I didn't want to go back on that. I didn't want to my pride, I guess, wouldn't allow me to go back to him. So I just figured out a way. And so what it was I made myself indispensable. I did the worst jobs, and hopefully I did them well, and Art noticed. And it's like Nita Hampton, who was our restaurant manager at the time, and her mother Joy was working there as well. It was like they wanted me cleaning that grill because it got done right. I even learned how to cook. I do remember one time making some biscuits and gravy with some sour milk, and 2 or 3 people got sick. But can I be held accountable 45 years later?
Nah.
Okay. But anyway, I tried to make sacrifices so I could hold to my original word that I gave to my parents, and I was able to pay it. And then the next year, because I played pretty well that year, I earned scholarship for my last 2 years at Central Oklahoma. So I would point that out. You couldn't do that today.
Right.
You couldn't work in the golf shop or the restaurant at Kickingbird,
right,
and pay for the tuition today.
Yeah.
But you could pay for part of it.
Yeah.
If you got a job.
And, you getting scholarship, it sounds like you obviously deserved it. That still happens too. I will say that about college golf these days. That does happen. Things change, players leave. Some players get more academic scholarship than you had planned on. You get some athletic back and you're able to disperse that. There are some good surprises every once in a while here and there. So that is a good thing.
That is a good thing. So I guess we can kind of button this up, talk
Sure.
about scholarships in saying that it's probably an uncomfortable thing for coaches because it's our only limited resource. We can't increase it. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, the player, the prospect, can increase it by doing well in the classroom and we work together in that sense, coach and player. the better student you are, the more academic scholarship you get. The more academic scholarship you get, the less athletic scholarship I have to give you, thus stretching that one resource that's limited a little further and making the team better in the process.
Yeah. And I think from a coach's perspective, there's 3 coaches that have spoken on this podcast, but if you can't afford it, 4 years of a great experience, finding the right fit is the most important thing. Like, we realize dollars are real. You got to make it, the accounting add up, but try and make your decision on getting the right fit and not penny pinching every single dollar to make the most beneficial financial decision. If you can afford it comfortably within your family, try and make the decision that is the correct fit for you.
Good advice there, Mikhail. I appreciate it. And thank you for joining me today on Better Than I Found It. You've got. I told you were an expert. You proved it to me right here.
Yeah, I guess I could qualify as an expert, but no problem. And I guess we'll be back next week, right, Coach?
We will be next week. Back next week, Better Than I Found. I think we're 135 Mondays in a row. I'm a streak guy, right?
You are very much a streak guy. So, be on the lookout next Monday. Should we call it at that?
Let's call it that. Thanks again, Mikhail.
Okay.